When you think of open-topped self-propelled guns, your mind likely jumps to German designs from the Second World War. These vehicles, with their powerful armaments often using anti-air guns or their derivatives, proved their value throughout the war, and this did not go unnoticed by the Allies. Today, we will explore several of these projects built by the Allies, including the US attempt to use the new M4 Sherman chassis for the role. This is the story of the 90mm Gun Motor Carriage T53, possibly the ugliest Sherman variant ever built. Speaking of Shermans, it's probably safe to guess that many of you watching have at one point or another thought about what it would be like to take command of one of these iconic tanks. Well, thanks to today's sponsor, Sherman Commander, you can do exactly that, controlling a Sherman of your own during the Second World War, all from the comfort of your home. Unlike other tank games you may have played in the past, Sherman Commander not only puts you in command of your very own Sherman, but also other tanks and infantry to use as you push into enemy territory. This isn't your typical casual shoot 'em up either, with German tanks and anti-tank weapons being a constant threat, made even more challenging by being limited to the real-world commander's position, risking being shot by sticking your head out of the tank, or staying safe inside at the cost of limiting your visibility significantly. For those of you looking for a truly challenging simulator, try out the game for yourself completely free using my link below to try the demo, which is now available on Steam. Be sure to let me know how far you managed to get, because I'll be honest, I keep getting my tank blown up. Huge thanks to Sherman Commander for sponsoring this portion of the video. Now let's get back to our main topic. The idea for the T53 and T53E1 would come almost immediately after the US entry into the Second World War, originating in January of 1942. As mentioned in the intro, the German use of self-propelled anti-tank guns in North Africa, notably the use of the Flak 88 in an anti-tank role, would inspire the Americans to develop a similar vehicle. To fulfill this, a 90mm gun was chosen to be paired with the newest tank to be added to the US arsenal. Unlike the M36 Jackson, which would come later, this design would instead seek to mount the gun to a modified Sherman chassis rather than fitting it into a turret. Initially, the design was drawn up to place the gun in the middle of the chassis with the hull largely removed aside from the engine compartment. This would quickly change, however, with Chrysler contracted to produce a prototype design with the gun now shifted to the rear. Designated 90mm Gun Motor Carriage T53, this would be built using an M4A4 hull with the engine changed from the multibank to the Wright R975 radial engine. Requirements for the design called for it to keep 80 degrees of elevation, 5 degrees of depression, 360-degree firing arc, and 100 rounds for the main gun. This was to allow it to not just engage armored targets, but also engage aerial threats. Mobility was to be 30 miles per hour, 48 kilometers per hour, using the aforementioned radial engine. Other changes to the tank included the removal of the bow machine gun and folding metal plates around the gun to allow for a larger firing platform when lowered. As with most prototypes, this one was found to be lacking in many aspects following testing at Aberdeen Proving Grounds. Effective anti-air fire was impossible due to the instability of the vehicle, and again, the desire to move the gun to the center of the vehicle made itself known. Protection of the crew was also under consideration, with a removable gun shield requested. The T53 found even further rejection when shown to the tank destroyer board at Camp Hood, who found it completely unsuitable as a tank destroyer, citing the tall height of the vehicle, low mobility, and hard-to-access ammo storage. They did find the gun to be accurate and overall satisfactory, but the other aspects of the vehicle were not to their expectations. For example, the need to deploy the armor plates for the firing platform added additional time before the vehicle was combat ready, and the ammo storage being located in a compartment under the gun required an additional 2 men to hand shells up to the loader. Due to this, it was found by the tank destroyer board that a crew of 8 would be needed for the vehicle to be effective. Despite likely being an effective tank killer, the T53 was passed over by the tank destroyer board in favor of their own designs, which I've previously covered with my videos on the M10 and M18. With the failure of the T53, a new design would be ordered with 2 prototypes of the 90mm Gun Motor Carriage T53E1 ordered once again from Chrysler. Instead of aiming for a dual-role anti-air and anti-tank vehicle, the focus was now shifted to primarily be towards aerial threats. This would also be where the design truly enters the running for Ugliest Sherman, with the gun shifted to the center of the hull and fitted with a large gun shield. For the first prototype, this was a massive box surrounding the gun crew made up of half-inch bolted steel plates. The hull remained that of the M4A4, with the radial engine moved back to the rear of the tank. Folding plates were added to both sides of the hull once again, allowing for a larger firing platform when used. Outriggers were also added, allowing for additional stability while firing when deployed. Possibly the most cursed aspect of this tank, though, was that rather than using welding for the construction, it was decided to use rivets like on the M3 Lee. This was chosen due to Chrysler already having production facilities available with this capability. As for the second prototype, this saw the gun shield completely redesigned along with a new variant of the M1A1 mount for the 90mm M1 designated M1A1E1. Now, 2 curved half-inch plates were used, offering less protection from the sides and above, but resolving an issue found with the bolted shield where the bolts would loosen while driving. The new mount also allowed for considerably more gun depression at around 4.5 degrees compared to under 1/4 degree with the previous M1A1 mount. Both of these prototypes were completed and delivered to Aberdeen around the end of 1942, with the second prototype later being sent to the Anti-Aircraft Artillery Board at Camp Davis. Similar to the feedback given to the original T-53 by the Tank Destroyer Board, the Anti-Aircraft Artillery Board found the T-53E1 lacking. The self-propelled gun was simply too tall, and a clear preference was shown towards towed mounts rather than self-propelled ones. Originally, plans for 500 production examples were authorized, as well as an additional 3,500 later, but this would never occur, with the project being cancelled on May 25, 1944. As noted by Nicholas Moran's book Can Openers, the vehicles were originally to be retained at Aberdeen for historical purposes, but as of writing this, they appear to have not survived outside of the surprisingly large number of photos showcasing the prototype vehicles. Most of the ones you are seeing in this video were provided by Nicholas Moran, so huge thanks to him for that, and I highly recommend picking up Can Openers if you haven't already. Though this particular project did not succeed, it was far from the only effort to create an anti-air self-propelled gun by the Allies. Not only did the US attempt several other designs, including the numerical predecessor to the T-53, the multiple gun motor carriage T-52, but the Canadians tried their hand as well. In 1942, they combined their ram tank chassis with the British 3.7-inch AA gun to create a vehicle quite similar to the T-53. The first testbed for this idea was completed in late July of 1942, closely matched with the US development. Trials would occur the following month, again paralleling the US development, and the ram would similarly prove to be problematic. Development would continue following the self-propelled gun being delivered to Britain in November, and it would see a variety of testing there in 1943. These included considerations for use as a support vehicle during amphibious landings and anti-air testing, but just like the T-53, it would never reach production, being rejected and cancelled in June of 1943. This wouldn't stop Canada's AA developments entirely though, with the later Skink AA tank built using the Canadian Grizzly, which was based on the Sherman, but that is a story for another day. The fate of the T-53 and T-53E1 may at first seem odd, given comparable vehicles existed within the German army and had even inspired their development. However, as you may recall from watching some of my previous episodes covering some of those designs, they weren't exactly the greatest success stories for the Germans either. One of the most direct comparisons can be seen with the Versuchsflakwagen. Just like the T-53, this design promised powerful firepower and the ability to target both ground and air threats, but in reality, it offered little that the existing towed 88s already did better. I think another quote from Can Openers sums this up fairly well. The AAAB also preferred a towed mount, as the immobilizing of a towing vehicle would not immobilize towed ordnance in such a case. Combat, especially in a war like the Second World War, often comes down to battles of attrition, and while the idea of combining your guns with self-propelled mounts is a good one, it also means you can lose both if it is damaged or destroyed. For Germany, this was something they didn't have a good solution for with their heavy guns, but the Allies, and especially the US, could churn out as many towing vehicles as needed. Instead of combining both the Sherman and 90mm AA gun into a single vehicle, a Sherman or other vehicle could tow the 90mm, and if either is damaged, the other can remain in operation independently. When you combine this with the tank destroyer branch desiring speed for their vehicles to fit their doctrine, this left no space for these large, cumbersome vehicles to fill. But what do you think? Were these a complete failure from the start? Or could these have found success if they had reached the battlefields of Europe or the Pacific? Let me know in the comments down below, and while you're down there, try your hand at being a Sherman Commander using my link below to try the demo of Sherman Commander. Be sure to let me know how far you get to ensure you rub in how bad I am at being a tank commander, and a huge thanks to them for sponsoring this video. You can also support the channel by going to ConeOfArc.store using my link below to pick up a Kobe set or the brand new model kits I just added. Thanks as always to my ConelyFans for their support of the channel. I really appreciate all of you, and of course, thank you all for watching. If you liked this video, consider checking out my previous episodes on the M18 Hellcat or some of the German attempts to build self-propelled AA vehicles. Hope to see you there or in my next video.